Right, I'm the artist taxi driver.
And I'm George Galloway.
The MP for Bradford West. Respect MP. Did you know? Did you start your political career when you were 13?
Even earlier. I was born into a political family that sent me out in short trousers at 5 and 6 to leaflet school gates at election day, and our house was darkened with Labour posters, Harold Wilson's face, darkened our windows throughout every election campaign. So even earlier, yeah, but I officially joined the party at 13, although you're not supposed to join it till you're 15, but hey, I've always looked older than my age.
Yeah, my son, he joined the Greens already. Caroline Lucas signed him up.
Okay.
What does it mean, George, to be an MP? What does it mean?
Well, I've 26 years sat in this building. I've been elected 6 times. On one level, it ought to be something to be proud of, because it's not a job that MD can give you or withhold you. The people elect you to it. So in an ideal country, in an ideal world, we'd all be really proud to be MPs. But in fact, it's now a parliament of poodles with pagers and expense forms in their inside pockets, filling those pockets and doing whatever somebody else tells them, as opposed to the dictates of their own conscience. It wasn't ever thus. When I came in here in 1987, there were 100, 200 men and women of independent mind who you could guarantee that when they stood up, they would say what they believed. It might be right, it might be wrong, but you knew that they really believed it. They weren't saying it because some focus group had identified it as a useful point of view, or some page had arrived on their pager telling them that that was the line to take. So I'm kind of half proud, half not, half feel it's worthwhile, half feel it's not. But I've just been in this morning. I've done a lot of media interviews this morning, but I've also dealt with half a dozen really quite important, urgent, local Bradford cases. That makes a difference to people's lives. You get somebody a visa, you get somebody their social security money reinstated, or their housing benefit. You find them a house, that sort of thing. That's valuable.
So what do you think of this statement? We have a bankrupt and corrupt political system, one that cares for corporations and not people.
I agree with that. Not everyone within the political system. There are even some half-decent MPs still. But generally speaking, this is not a parliament of the people, for the people, by the people. It's a corporate parliament where the main parties, as I've often said, are 3 cheeks of the same arse. And you couldn't, if you'll forgive the grubby metaphor, slip a cigarette paper between either of them on the big issues. They all support privatisation, austerity, war, and to one extent or another are playing the race card. And this
current government has abolished its duty to care with the outsourcing and the privatisation of the NHS, and with this heinous welfare reform bill.
Yeah, although the road to this particular perdition was paved by the Blair and Brown governments. Of course, I'm the last person to exculpate the Tories from their crimes, but none of these crimes would have been possible but for the Blair revolution, which effectively declared that public was bad, private was good, that there was a market for everything, and that market should be as unregulated, or in Gordon Brown's immortal phrase about the banks, as light touch regulated as possible. Even Mrs. Thatcher didn't do the things that Cameron is now doing and that Blair and Brown did before him.
Well, they've got this ideological austerity, this sort of like where the poor, but not for the rich. But the primary purpose of this government right now seems to be the movement of public money into private pockets.
Yes, capitalism is now on a publicly funded life support system, has been now for years, will be for many years to come, maybe forever. And the capitalism that they used to teach us about in economics classes at school, all this guff, the Adam Smith guff, it turns out to be a complete illusion, that in the end the public which has been exploited by the capitalist system in the first place, shared little of the largesse that capitalism produces. When capitalism fails, they have to bail it out with their tax money. It's a clearest transfer of public to private, of resources from poor to rich, that there's ever been in this country. It's absolutely naked.
And at the same time, you touched on it there, at the same time they're pushing through this agenda, trying to win the populist vote, trying to divide the nation with bongo land, with racist fans, with border, racist profiling of normal UK citizens being targeted.
They're playing that card, and we'll see a whole deck of these cards still to come. The parties, all of them, even Labour, are to an extent or other playing this game. It's terrifyingly dangerous. It could set the country on fire, literally. It could lead to blood, and it's divide and rule, nothing more or less than that. They want to divide the South from the North, men from women, black people from white, Muslims from non-Muslims, British from French, British from what they call bongo land, by which they mean the rest of the world. The fear of Johnny Foreigner. Is he coming here? Is he getting something that belongs to us? These are all devices to divide and more easily control and rule the people. And
this is also attached to the war machine, which is banks, oil and arms, which is you can see in... What's your thoughts on places like Syria at the moment?
Well, Syria has gone disastrously badly for the imperial camp. They said 2 years ago that the regime in Damascus would have fallen. It's not going to fall. Everyone now knows it isn't going to fall. And therefore their new allies, or rather their renewed allies in Al-Qaeda, are not going to triumph. It's a very important setback for them, and it's an important victory for those of us who stood firm, not because we support Bashar al-Assad. I don't and never have. Not because we love the Ba'ath Party. I don't and never have. The reason for supporting the unity as an Arab nationalist country of Syria is to prevent a descent into a vortex of sectarian hatred and madness that ends with people eating each other's hearts.
The war machine, without death and destruction, the war machine, right now you're looking at people like in power thinking, where are we going to go next? Iran, Venezuela, they want their oil, and that's how, without it, the global economy would collapse. What about Scottish independence?
Well, I'm against that. I knew you'd ask me about that. First of all, I don't think it's independence at all. Scotland would still have a foreign queen. It would still use foreign currency, the pound. That foreign currency would be controlled by the Bank of, guess what, England. They haven't had the courage of their convictions to go for the euro. And how could they? How's the euro doing? So it isn't independence. But what it would lead to is a race to the bottom. A Scottish government competing with a perpetually Tory government in England, low tax, low spend, and free market Tory England. Scotland would have to compete with that, and therefore even the small number of liberal reforms like prescription charges and so on that the Scots enjoy would very soon disappear. Moreover, taking scores of anti-Tory MPs out of Westminster by virtue of independence would leave the English people, most of whom have nothing to gain from Tory rule, under Tory hegemony forever.
You've taken a lot of stick for your stance on basically everything. Actually, I was going to say Scottish independence, but whenever you say something, it seems that you kind of divide opinion. Because maybe it's because you just come out with things, but it's especially like around that Julian Assange things and some things that you said about rape. There's a lot of hatred out there for you've never apologised for what you said.
Well, I don't apologise for saying what I believe to be true, and if I'm the last man standing believing it, that'll be okay with me. Obviously, I hope to persuade others of the correctness of what I am saying, but I will never say something I don't believe, and I will never not say something that I do believe.
Salma, who was head of who left Respect, she said choosing between George Galloway anti-imperialist stances and standing up for the rights of women was a false choice.
I'm not sure your viewers will all know who she is, but
were you sad about that Salma leaving Respect?
Yeah, and for those who don't know, he's referring to Salma Yaqub, who was for a time a leading figure in Respect, and I wish her well. She is a great figure, and I hope she goes on to play a big role in public life. But hey, we've gotten over it, and most people actually don't know that she was ever there, never mind that she left. We were right in the stand that we took on all the major matters over the 9 years now of our existence, and I hope we'll continue to be right. That's what's important. Martin Luther King once said, some people do things because they're popular, some people do things because they're profitable. But do you understand if people get upset with your views? And
no, you don't understand if people get upset.
No, not in our own party. No.
No, but outside,
the public, yeah, of course.
Because a lot of people
politics
on the left,
is a very divisive business.
Yeah.
Politics is a question of A or B, and if you choose A, the people who wanted you to choose B and believe in B are necessarily upset by the stand that you've taken. I just say what I think is right, and I think I say it quite well. That's why it attracts attention, and when it attracts attention, that accentuates.
Are you going to run for mayor of London?
I probably will. I have a committee exploring it now. It's a shrunken field. Boris Johnson won't be running. Ken Livingstone won't be running. I would never have run against Ken Livingstone. He's a very old friend of mine. And Labour will field Ken Livingstone minus. The Tories will field Boris Johnson minus.
So you think you can win it?
I can win, yeah.
See, a lot of politics is about personality. You only got to look at Boris. Boris is like a fucking... He's shutting fire stations.
Yeah.
He's
sacking
a lunatic.
500 firefighters.
Can you imagine you're like laughing when you're looking at your children when they're on fire because you voted for Boris because you thought he was funny?
I think that's a very powerful way of putting it. This buffoon isn't as stupid as he looks. This has all been a game plan.
I think he is. I think we're living in the end of our times. I think our species is fucked. I think it's all over, mate.
No, I don't agree with that. But what I was going to say...
I'm the artist taxi driver. This, my friends, is George Galloway.
Who thinks